Welcome to Potline Bling. I'm your host, JJ Coombs. My next guest runs the largest cannabis and hemp testing lab in the eastern half of the USA. Roger Brown, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
I'm happy to be here. Happy, wonderful day for us all today.
Absolutely. So ACS Labs, man, I'm in the hemp industry. I use you guys all the time. So when did you get started with this? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Our lab started actually 13 years ago.
Okay.
Almost 14 years ago, and we started getting into the cannabis industry in 2016, and we transitioned from doing traditional clinical laboratory testing to doing cannabis testing. And we were the first laboratory actually doing testing in the state of Florida. And then we transitioned into hemp after the Farm Bill passed in 2018. So we've grown our business to be quite significant, and we have now a 20,000 square foot laboratory, which is the largest footprint laboratory in the United States, and where we do the most volume on the eastern half of the US, and we do 50% of all the marijuana in the state of Florida, and we do hemp from 48 or 50 states, I'm not sure what it is today, and 16 different countries. And, we've created a bit of a standard in the industry, especially in the hemp industry, where hemp providers can really depend on the consistency and the reliability of the testing results. We care about our results and make sure that they are correct before sending them out, rather than just being a robotic laboratory that just does the test and sends it out, whatever the results are. So we take a lot of pride in the work that we do, and we enjoy it.
Do you guys have any plans on going into other states?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are. We have plans right now. We're looking at 5 different states, almost 6 states. I'm trying to work on a different deal for the 6th state, and mostly on the eastern half of the US. And then we've also developed all kinds of new products that we test. So we don't just do the standardized testing, which is kind of unique about our laboratory, because we do all of our own scientific method development and validations, and we have the ability to develop tests that are unique to certain clients and also unique to the industry.
What do you mean by that, unique to certain clients? Like, are you talking about specific cannabinoids or?
Right now we test for 23 different cannabinoids. I think that the industry, the marijuana industry, is so hyper focused on the level of THC. It's really the wrong way to focus on marijuana. You should focus on the quality of the marijuana and on the actual product, the terpenes, and the other forms of nutrients in the product, like flavonoids and so forth, rather than just focusing on the THC levels. Because quite frankly, let's be honest here, when people buy marijuana, I would gander a guess that most of the time, whatever the level of THC is that they're buying it at is not real, because there are laboratories that are out there that just pump up the level of their THC. And from a hemp perspective, there's a lot of different derivatives of hemp products like Delta 8, Delta 10, HHC, THCOA, HHCP. I mean, we're seeing all kinds of blends and mixtures of different hemp products that are out there in the marketplace. And unfortunately, not everybody makes their product the same way. And it's not just a CBD product anymore. There are all these different types of derivatives, which are manufactured with some pretty significantly dangerous chemicals. And if you don't wash those chemicals out properly during the process, then you can have a dangerous product for a consumer. So it really comes all the way back to, on the cannabis side, are you growing it right? Are you selling it right? And are you are you labeling it right? And on the hemp side, is your product clean and safe with all these new derivatives to make sure that it's not dangerous? It's what it really all comes down to in the marketplace. And every single state has different regulations. Florida has the most strict regulations in the whole country for marijuana. And for hemp, there's so many different regulations across the whole country. Like Colorado has the most requirements for pesticides. New York has the weirdest requirements for microbiological testing. So we've developed actually a new testing panel, which we call our National Testing Panel, which is compliant in every single state in the country. So when you do this one testing panel, it's compliant in every state. You never have to worry about being pulled off the shelves or being fined or selling a product that's not compliant in any state.
So you mentioned, there's labs that will pump up the THC levels. I think that labs doing that are kind of the real issue, right? That's what leads to people wanting 99% THC when they go to the stores, because that's what they see, instead of just being honest and saying, hey, this is an 82% THC and it works just as well, right?
It's easier and more prevalent in flower, actually. So if you buy marijuana flower and it's 30% THC, maybe it is 30% THC, maybe it's 20%. The only person who loses is the person that's buying, either the patient or the consumer. Those are the people that lose. The laboratory that got the business because they pumped up the numbers, they win. The grower that's selling a product at 30% that's really 20% has that incremental margin, they win. And then the patient or the consumer gets the wrong information, pays more, gets less. That's the person that gets hurt. And I deal with that every single day. And from a marijuana perspective, if you're a small laboratory that's just starting out, the only way that a small laboratory just starting out can get business is either by dropping their price or pumping up their numbers. And some of the customers that are out there, clients, the growers, they want those higher numbers because it's incremental margin for them. If they want those higher numbers that are not real, those are not our clients. And unfortunately, so we only do 50% of the business in the state of Florida, but I have been approached by growers in Florida that say, if your numbers aren't high enough, we're not going to do business with you. And this guy's giving me higher numbers, we're going to do business with them. From a hemp perspective, it's that a hemp grower, producer, manufacturer can take their product and send it to any laboratory they want in the whole country. They can send it to 3 or 4 different laboratories and then just pick and choose the certificate of analysis that they want as to what their levels are. And then they could sell it. So until the federal government comes out with some ubiquitous standards to be able to make sure that products are tested the same way across the board, it's going, or the requirements are the same. It's going to be kind of like the Wild Wild West in the hemp industry. What separates us from a lot of the other laboratories is that most of the GMP manufacturers that are out there that are making high volume, high gross volume of product and high quality product and are looking ahead to what the regulations might be, do most of the testing with us because we allow them to come in and audit us. We allow them to come in and, you can look at, we're an open book, come in, look at us, audit everything that we do. Not an issue at all. And they do. And then they use us. I mean, there's a reason why a big company in Colorado uses us, or a company in California uses our laboratory when they have a lab right down the corner, right around the block. And why would they send to Florida? It's not because we're pumping the numbers up. Our price is competitive, but we're just consistent and reliable.
So speaking about that, there's, from personal experience, I've had a lot of issues testing Delta 8, right? You'll see different labs with different numbers. And, in particular, I've seen some with Delta 9 and some without Delta 9. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. When you do a regular potency test for standardization of, let's say, 11 cannabinoids, that test is, for us, the method is about 9 minutes long. So, and then all the peaks come out at certain levels, certain times, and then it gives you the results. Delta 8 and Delta 9 overlap each other.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being separated like this, they're like a hip and a shoulder to each other. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult to be able to determine the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9. And some laboratories will say, hey, that's Delta 8. Some will say, hey, it's Delta 9. And they won't do it. They won't do it right. So when we do our test for Delta 8, when our clients order our test, which we call potency 13 is the name of the test, or potency 12 or 13, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a 22-minute long test. So it stretches the chromatogram out so that instead of being like this, a Delta 8 and Delta 9, it's like this. And it's very definitive what's 8 and what's 9.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about the federal government releasing some, method or standard way of testing this. I agree with you that I think that that's something that needs to be done in order to have, uniformity across all the labs. When do you see this happening?
I don't see it happening soon.
Yeah.
I really don't see it happening soon. And I don't see it happening soon, both on a hemp side and until marijuana is federally legal, I don't see it happening on a marijuana side. So like we have very, very strict regulations in marijuana in Florida, and the regulators are really, really tight on the laboratories, but yet there are laboratories that are still able to get away with pumping up their THC numbers. And the only way to be able to fight that is to have a third-party laboratory that does a test and compares, or to have what I have called for, which is a laboratory consortium, where the regulator can go on the shelf with a hemp product or with a marijuana product, pull 3 products off the shelf. It's all in the same batch number. Pull 3 products off, send them to 3 different laboratories, and get the results. If one laboratory gives you the result of 20% and another laboratory gives you a result of 30%, well, I mean, that's 50% difference in results of THC. Mm-hmm. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's what we see every day. Every day. I mean, it used to be years ago, people would laugh about marijuana in Oregon. All the Oregon marijuana must be the best grown marijuana in the whole country because everything was 35, 40% THC. Well, I got news for you. It wasn't. It just wasn't. So, I mean, it's like, that's the kind of stuff that we see in different places. So like today, when you take a hemp product and you extract out the Delta 8, and then you take the Delta 8 and you change it, convert it using like acetic anhydride, which is a dangerous chemical, and you make THCOA, or you make HHC by hydrogenating it. It's a change of the chemical structure of the product. It does make a psychoactive product that is sold and legally sold as psychoactive product. But those producers that are fast and furious and making the product and not making sure that everything is clean out of the product are actually selling products that could be quite dangerous to the customer. If you're consuming these dangerous chemicals, these residual solvents that are there, it could really hurt you significantly, especially if you're smoking it, if you're inhaling it.
Do you guys have a way of testing for those catalysts or solvents, like, let's say HHC, you hydrogenate? I mean, is what would be dangerous there?
It all depends on the method that they use to be able to manufacture the product. But yes, we test for 24 different residual solvents. We also, for THCOA, we test for acetic anhydride, which is used to be able to manufacture that product. So we test for all of those residual solvents and do it. But somebody and for HHC, we test for 4 different isomers. We test for 9R, 9S, 9B, and HHCP, which is a combination of THCP and HHC. There's a lot of letters, but you understand what I'm talking about. But either way, it's dangerous if they didn't clean it out. So when a customer calls up and they say, "Hey, I want to test my product, but I only want to test potency. I don't want to test for heavy metals or for residual solvents or pesticides or do a full panel test." I look at those customers and I know that their product may not be the cleanest. I mean, I know whose product is clean and whose product is not clean, just based upon, quite frankly, what they order, and secondly, what the results are. I mean, there are many different large GMP manufacturers, again, that are doing all full panel testing and making sure everything's clean and being good corporate citizens, in the marketplace, and being good actors. And then there are plenty of people that are just bad actors. They don't care. They just want to sell product.
Yeah. I think from my end, what I've been seeing is, as the prices of Delta-8 and all these cannabinoids go down, a lot of these guys that are like fast and furious, let me do this in a garage in a Home Depot bucket, are just, they're going on and moving on to something else because it's commodity, and in order to stay in business, you got to make good product. I also see now that a lot more states are requiring full panels in order for you to be able to sell these products in your states, which, is what brings the change that we need, right?
It's required, but they don't have the ability to enforce it. And that's where lies the real rub. And by the way, everybody's marijuana is the best marijuana. And everybody's hemp is the best hemp. So everybody will tell you that their product is the best, absolute 100% best. I feel like the Wizard of Oz, look behind the curtain over here. I can tell you exactly whose product is the best in the marketplace, except I'm not going to verbally say it because I have, thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, tens of thousands of clients, and doing so much business across the country that, it's just, there are plenty of clients that we ask to go to use another laboratory. We do it all the time. It's just, we just can't deal with you anymore. And it also, there's a lot of science behind hemp, because hemp has become so complicated with the different variables of hemp. I mean, when it just used to be CBD and then CBG and CBN, life was easy and simple. And then with all these derivatives of the product, it's really become quite difficult. I mean, I got a call from the I'm not going to say the state, but the FDA department of a state, where they said, did you test this product? I look it up. I go, yeah, I tested the product. And they say, well, how did this Delta-8 gummy bear product end up in a hospital gift shop being sold? And then one of the people who work in the hospital went to go buy this package of gummy bears, figuring, well, if I get a sugar boost, I'll be able to make it through my shift. And they ate 10 gummy bears.
Oh, no.
Ended up on an IV in a bed in the hospital. And they're a hospital worker. And this just recently happened to me. And it's like, sometimes these products need to be sold in places and labeled properly where somebody knows. I mean, just because it says Delta-8 doesn't mean that people know what Delta-8 is. I mean, you look at a package, you think it's a gummy bear.
Yeah.
You don't know what Delta-8 is. So where you market, where you sell the product, so that person, are they a good actor that they sold it there, or a bad actor? My vote is bad actor. I mean, you have to know where you're selling your product and know what you're selling, and who your audience is.
One thing that really bugs me about the hemp industry on this side, since we're on this topic of gummies, is the dosage that some brands are putting on in their gummies. It's insane. No one needs to start off with 250 milligrams of Delta 8 in a gummy. That's crazy.
What's even better is when you go to a show and they're giving away free samples and people think they're just eating a piece of candy, and the next thing you know, they're sitting in a corner and they don't know how to walk or move or do anything. You have to be a good corporate citizen, and you have to be a good actor in this marketplace to know what products you're making, who you're selling it to, and what the marketplace is. And then you have to be truthful about what your product is. Because again, I have to keep going back to it, because THC levels has always been the focus on marijuana. And it really shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be terpenes, flavonoids, to know what's in the product, what kind of CBG, CBN, CBD mixture, because the cannabinoid mixture of the products is what works for each individual person. What works for my body chemistry may not work for your body chemistry. So everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's different, and everybody needs something different. But what nobody needs is to pay top dollar for high level product that's really here because some laboratory decided to pump up their numbers, and some grower or developer or a seller or manufacturer, wanted to have a higher number. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
I agree. I think that's why on the hemp side, these blends are just blowing up, because it's really what works, right? It's having the CBG, the CBN, the CBC, the Delta 8, the Delta 10, the HHC, all of that together is what gives you that entourage effect, with the terpenes. I couldn't agree more. On that topic, how hard is it getting to test these blends that have like 10 different cannabinoids in there?
It's not. For us, it's not hard at all. It's actually easy. As long as somebody tells us what the product is. I mean, if it's HHC and THCP, we do a test. We have a standard called HHCP, and we test for HHCP. If it's Delta 8, that's easy. That's a walk in the park. But we identify it by doing a longer method, because the 8 and the 9 again are right next to each other, and in the chromatograms. But when you have a laboratory that's doing the same test for everything, they come out with nothing. I mean, a perfect great story is we have a lot of beverage clients. We're really, really good at testing beverages, because you need to be able to test nanotechnology and nano emulsions. You have to know how to do it. But we have 3 water companies that we do testing for. One of those water companies, somebody bought their water, sent it to 4 different laboratories, and the 4 different laboratories came up with zero cannabinoids in the product. Nothing, because they didn't know how to test beverages. They're our client. I know what's in the product. And they ended up in a lawsuit. And I know what's in the product because they got defamed in the media for having a product with no cannabinoids in it, when it actually did, because you can't apply the same testing structure to every product. I can't test regular 11 cannabinoids to be able to test for THCOA, because it won't come up. HHC, it won't come up. It'll come up with 0. So when you test for 23 different cannabinoids and you have such a large plethora of product, I mean, we even used to test for HU331. Most people don't even know what that is. It's a great cannabinoid that's actually good for you in many different ways, but there are several cannabinoids that are anti-inflammatory, that are anti-carcinogenic. And flavonoids are something that are really, really great. They're naturally occurring in flower, and they're in flower. They're in extracts from the flower, and they're anti-carcinogenic and anti-inflammatory. Who's testing for flavonoids? I'm the only one testing for flavonoids, and I do a lot of flavonoid testing. And a lot of our clients promote the flavonoids and the terpenes and kind of de-promote the THC levels. It's changing the mindset of people that are buying the products. But yeah, it's easy for us to test for all different kinds of products. We had a hemp client that wanted to test for melatonin and theanine, and we developed a test for them to do for melatonin and theanine. Well, you can't just do a regular test and come up with a result for melatonin and theanine. It took us 2 weeks, developed a method, and validate it and so forth and done it. Now they're testing melatonin and theanine all the time because that's in their product and they want to be able to put it on the label.
Do you guys also develop methods for cannabinoids that you can't buy standards for on like Cayman?
We try not to.
Okay.
We have in the past, but if there's a certified reference material that's available, it's much easier for us to develop a method and do a validation. So you always have to have a standard. If we test for a cannabinoid, if we develop a method for a cannabinoid that we don't have a standard for, somebody better promise us a lot of volume because it's a lot of work for us to do that and to be able to do that testing and really almost create a laboratory developed standard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
We've got a couple minutes left, so you have anything else to say to the listeners?
Yeah. Well, we developed the first cannabis dispensary and the first cannabis laboratory in the metaverse in Decentraland. It's called Automatic Slims. We did a joint venture with a company called Blockticity, which is a blockchain company which takes certificates of analysis, puts them on the blockchain so they cannot be altered or changed, and makes an NFT for them, and then puts that on the internet. And now you can go into Automatic Slims and you can get a full education on hemp, on marijuana, and on cannabinoids, and on the process and the growing process and the manufacturing process and so forth. We're also doing podcasts from there. We have some pretty famous people that are doing podcasts, and we have some really cool concerts that are going to be done on the roof of the dispensary and the laboratory. And we got some rock stars that are going to be there that are involved in the cannabis industry, and they're going to be putting on some pretty good events. But mostly it's about education, so people can actually learn what the cannabinoids are, what they do, how they affect you, and also how they can also buy products in the metaverse and Decentraland. And then it just gives somebody the ability to be able to learn, because education, I think, is the core to this whole industry, because most people don't even understand what a cannabinoid is, how it affects you, what it does to your body, and so forth, and how it could be so positive instead of just getting high.
I couldn't agree more. I think the industry as a whole lacks education, and it takes people like us going out there and giving people the resources and answering questions, being transparent. But I have thankfully noticed some changes happening on both the cannabis and the hemp side, and let's continue that. So Roger, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us today in the podcast. Thank you, listeners, for listening to us and being with us on Potline Bling. You can find all of our episodes on cannabisradio.com. Please rate the show, give us 5 stars, subscribe. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you guys want to find out some more information about ACS Labs, you can go visit them at ACS Lab Cannabis, right? ACSLabCannabis.com.
Just ACSLab.com.
Or ACSLab.com. You could go ahead and Google them, and be sure to check out them on the metaverse.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.